Life is made up of moments, some great ones, some terrible ones. Moments make up the man or woman. What do you do to prepare for that? What do you do when it has arrived? What do you do when it has passed? You don't make the moments make you. This is the Muamba Moments. Thank you, and we're here again for another segment of the Muamba Moments, and this time with the fabulous Phylicia George.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to sit down and have this conversation. Let's get right into it.
Let's go.
Phylicia George, how would you describe yourself?
Wow. Well, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is and I've been doing this for a long time. I'm an athlete.
Okay.
Three-time Olympian, competed in the Summer Olympics and the Winter Olympics. Track and field athlete, 100-meter hurdler, Bobsledder. But aside from that, I'm just someone who loves to have fun, someone who loves to laugh, someone who loves to challenge yourself and to enjoy life.
Good. I love that. Now, you talked about track, and you do it at such a high level, the highest level possible, the Olympic stage. Yeah. Where did it all start?
So my earliest memories of running are racing my dad in parking lots. Literally, you're leaving the store, and you're like, "Hey, Dad, who's gonna get to the car first?" And I think initially he used to let me win. Then it got to a point where I legit was winning.
But he was probably telling you, "I'll let you win."
Right. And then in elementary school we used to have play days.
Okay.
Right? Did y'all have play days?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, yeah. So play days, and I was the fastest kid. Girl, boy, I'm faster than everybody, And everybody was telling me, you should really get a coach. You should train. You could be really good at it. So when I went into high school in grade 10, I eventually followed up on that. Got a coach and ended up going to UConn on a full athletic scholarship. And, the ball just kept rolling from there.
Cool. Now, let's get into your career that we already mentioned you do at such a high level. How do you find, because my background is in football, so right. I'm used to team sports, so I play basketball, it's still a team sport, and then obviously in the bigger team sport as
I played basketball back in the day.
No, we're not going to talk about that. No. But you didn't mention that at the beginning. It tells me a lot. But how do you deal with being so solitary in your sport, but yet still thriving and growing?
Right. I actually think one of the things that drew me to track and field is the fact that it's an individual sport. Funny enough. I like being out on the track and relying on myself. And I like knowing that the outcome is based on me.
Okay.
There's nobody else within that. And so I know it's how much effort that I put in to practice on a daily basis. It's my execution. And so in one way, it's I know if I have a great race, I get the claim for that.
Right.
But I also know that if I'm not feeling good through my warm up or whatnot, there's nobody there to help me out. I got to find a way to make it happen. So, there's nobody really to fall back on those bad days. But I think for those moments when everything really clicks, I really appreciate that. And I like lining up. There's something special about lining up. You have your lane, and there's 7 other people out there, and it's literally let's see who's the best today. And I think it's I'm going to give my best, you're going to give your best, and let's see what happens at the finish line. And I love that feeling. So
just to get into it even more, with the solitude of track and the difference between team sports, in a team setting, whenever things go bad or, they go wrong, and you always have people around you to kind of encourage you and push you. How do you deal with things like that? So when you have a bad practice or a bad race, or I don't know if you've ever had any. I know I know how great
part of the game. Yeah,
right. So how do you deal with that?
So I guess it's kind of two-sided. So I think on one end, I do have a team of people around me.
Okay.
So I have my coach, I have my strength coach, I have training partners.
I love that.
You know, family, friends. So I think at times you have to lean on those people, and it takes a family, a village
to raise a child.
It takes a village. I'm like, what? It takes a village to raise a child. So I have a lot of people, you know, in my corner supporting me, and you know, in those moments when you're like, your confidence might not be as high, they can remind you, like, look at all this work you've done. Look at where you've come from. Look at everything you've done. So I have that. But I think also over the years, I've really worked on just building my own like mental strength, mental fortitude. I do a lot of meditation, and so just understanding that, you know, one moment or one bad race doesn't define me, and that I can always, you know, make it up for the next race. And I think track and field is really about being confident and having the utmost belief in yourself.
Yeah.
And so even in those bad moments, just remembering like who I am and in my abilities, and, you know, getting ready to get the next race.
Yeah, you definitely don't like any confidence, right?
Yeah.
With the hair that you continuously change. But so let's talk about mental toughness. You mentioned being mentally tough, mentally strong. How do you develop that? Because I mean, I think it's an essential skill that everyone needs to have, and it doesn't matter what area of life you might be. I think it's really beneficial to yourself if you're able to be mentally strong. So how did you develop that?
I think the biggest thing has been never staying in my comfort zone. Like, I'm a really big believer in stepping outside of your comfort zone. So I went and did bobsleigh, right?
Right.
And I think when you step outside of your comfort zone, that's when you give yourself a chance to show yourself what you're really made out of. You're challenging yourself in a whole new way, and you're allowing yourself to kind of find parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed. And so for me, in doing that and challenging myself and learning about myself and kind of like going through the struggle and then coming out on the other side, going through those experiences, that's what's really helped me build up my mental strength. And, you know, getting injured and then kind of just slowly working my way through that. And I'm a really big believer in patience and process. So I understand that everything is a process, and it's going to be a step by step. And the way I look at things is always like, I just got to put one foot in front of the other. I know what the big goal is, and I know where I'm trying to get to, but I got to focus on what I can focus on right here, right now. And just put left foot in front of right foot, like just keep going, just keep taking those steps forward. Even I remember I heard somebody say one time, like, you know, even on the longest journey, if you're in like a dark roadway, you just need to see 20 meters in front of you. I don't need to see all the way down. I just need to see 20 meters in front of me. I got my headlights on, and that's where I need to go, and you will get to your destination.
Oh man, like so many good things you mentioned, and I want to get to and touch on. Let's start with this. So first of all, you're here. We're in Round Rock, Texas.
Yeah.
And you know, you've been in different places, and you're here to train.
Yeah.
Right. And you talked about the process. You talked about the hard work that it takes and whatnot. How much of a sacrifice is it, and what do you think the role of sacrifice plays on the journey?
Right. It's a lot of sacrifices. And I mean, as a track and field athlete, so much of like my season basically extends like from November to September. You know what I mean? I get 1 month off, and so a big part of my life is training and just putting that time in. And I mean, I could tell you countless friends' birthdays that I've missed, you know, baby showers.
Right.
But thankfully I have like a really good circle of people around me who understand what I'm trying to do and to do it at the highest level. But I think when you truly love something and you're truly dedicated to it, it doesn't always feel like a sacrifice. It feels like commitment. I'm committing myself to this. I'm dedicating myself to this. I'm passionate about it. I love doing it.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I just feel like I know I'm putting money in the bank towards something, to a goal that I'm trying to achieve. So I don't even like to think of it as sacrifice.
Talk to us about that word. You mentioned dedication. Talk to us about that, because I mean, it's constant dedication and continual commitment, right? And I'm sure there's been days where it's been tough, it's been hard, you know, we saw your workout earlier, and it gets hard. How do you fight through that? You know, there's a lot of other people that are probably watching this and telling themselves, man, like, I wish I could do that, but man, this is too hard. Or whatever they might be going through, and it might be hard for them. What is the thing that Phylicia George can tell them that can kind of get them over the hump?
Yeah. I feel like my biggest thing is always keeping my goals in mind, and constantly reminding me, like, why are you doing this? So I think on the days when it's extremely hard, you don't want to do it. It's 6 a.m. You don't want to get out of bed. Your bed's nice and cozy, you know. That's when you have to know your why, and that why has to be bigger than any fears that you might have. It has to be bigger than any, you know, feeling comfortable, because you know that this is something that you really, really want to go after. And one thing that I've kind of held true to this year is what you do every day matters more than what you do every once in a while.
Come on.
So to me, consistency is key, and doing something, you know, day in, day out, and doing it on the days that you don't feel like it's the most important. And the way I also look at it as a competitor is those days that I don't feel like it, that's also a day that someone else, you know, probably doesn't feel like it, and that's going to give me that little extra edge. And so I'm like, well, I got to go out there and make sure that, you know, I'm fighting for my dreams. And when I'm standing at the start line, I don't ever want to feel like I have doubt. I want to be able to stand at the start line fully confident in what I've done. And, you know, I really believe in no stone unturned. So, and that only comes with preparation. Absolutely. And doing it day in and doing it day out. And so, I just want to be out there and be able to run free because I know I've put in all the work that was necessary. Yeah,
I completely agree. I always say, you know, preparation will impact your performance, right? So your practice gives you confidence to perform well. And you also mentioned the fact that it's so long, it's a long journey, right?
Yeah.
Now, how do you maintain such a high level of excellence for so long, right? Because again, you have to train for so long. If we're talking about Olympics or whatnot, it comes every 4 years? How do you maintain?
Every 2 if you're doing Winter Olympics.
We're gonna get into Winter Olympics in a second, but if you're training for Summer Olympics it's every 4 years. So how do you maintain that level of excellence over such a long period of time?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because I think that's one of the things that a lot of people struggle with. Yeah. Right? People are able to do the right thing for a certain amount of time, but they're not necessarily able to do it for the long period, for the long run, enough for them to become great. Right.
I think it's interesting because even like you're talking about the Olympics being like every 4 years, but it's like you don't just start training those 4 years. And like, you know, I've been training since I was 15.
Right.
A goal of going to the Olympics, right? So this literally is like years on years, you know, in the making. But for me, I just feel like I always change my goals from year to year. Yes. And I always sit down at the beginning of the year and kind of outline, like, being very intentional, and this is what I want it to look like. But I also think it's important to kind of just mix things up a little bit, you know. So the way I want to approach each year is probably a little bit different. Ultimate goal is still the same, like, you know, I want to perform at a high level. So, but for this year, for example, like, my goal was, instead of focusing on outcomes or times, because other years I would sit down and I'd be like, okay, I want to run this time specifically. And that was great for me, and that really helped me, like, okay, I know that that's the time I want, so I'm going to work towards that. But this year, doing something different to keep it fresh for me, it was like, I'm not going to set any time goals, no limits on what I'm capable of. And this year, I just want to focus on the process through that.
The step by step.
Like the step by step, like literally. And focusing on building my mental fortitude through practice. So I wanted every practice to feel like a mental exercise for me. And I want the mental that I'm going to bring into practice to carry over into my competition, which I've never done that before. So I think just always trying to push your limits and find new ways for you to be better just helps you to continue to grow and continue, you know, to get better as a person and, you know, as an athlete, for me specifically.
Absolutely. Man, I want to move into the bobsled because I think it's an amazing, amazing part of your journey and your life and your story, period. But it's just so foreign to me.
Right.
I mean, I did a little bit of track myself back in the day, you know.
Right.
And definitely not at the level that you're doing it now. But competition for you is not necessarily with somebody else, right? You're really competing with yourself.
Yeah.
The former you.
Yeah.
The you from last year.
Yeah.
The you from the last track meet.
Right.
You're competing against time.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So much of track is focusing on yourself, and like I always say, you gotta stay in your lane, like literally. And I think that like applies to life as well, right?
I love it.
But you gotta stay in your lane, because in order to execute a great race, you can't be thinking about what other people are doing in the lanes next to you, right? So it literally has to be like, here, I have these two white lines. I'm going to be within it, and I'm going to do what I need to do.
Right.
Yes, we're running at the same time, but I'm executing what I need to do here.
Right.
And so that being said, track is very like quantitative. So there's a time that I get at the end. So it's very clear to see like, okay, this is where I'm at right now. Next race, I want to be a little bit more. So yeah, it's really about battling yourself. But I think even within that, it's interesting because you realize how hard it is to only focus on yourself. Like I think, and especially in like society and the way the world works here right now, is we're always comparing ourselves to other people and this is what this person's doing. And through my journey, I've learned so much how when I'm focused on other people, I'm not going to see the results that I want.
That's good.
Right?
That's good.
And so it's
good.
really about how can I be as disciplined and as focused about my goals and on my execution of my race, you know? Because the thing is, like, let's say in track, some people are going to have an amazing start and they're going to be out there.
Right.
And as a taller athlete, I take a little time to get the legs going and get moving, right?
Right.
So if I'm focused on that girl that's 20 meters out ahead of me, you know, in a 100-meter race, and I throw everything off, but I know my strength is down there.
Right.
I lose my strength because I'm focusing on what she's doing. But if I just stay in my lane, stay focused and stay patient. Patience is like a huge thing for me, but stay patient through that. You know, I'm a be able to get the best out of me, you know, in the best part of my race, as opposed to focusing on what somebody else is doing.
I like that.
You know?
I like that. So you really have to focus on your strengths and how do you deal with your weaknesses or not your strengths? Yeah,
but I mean, I think you got to look at the race as a whole, right? So I know the goal is to get to the finish line as fast as possible. And it has to be, how can Phylicia George get to the finish line as fast as possible? So I wouldn't even say it's a weakness. It's not the strongest part of my race, right? And I know where I'm going to excel. And who cares if you're beating me at 10 meters if I'm going to be ahead at 100? You know what I mean? Because that's what the goal is. So you always got to be able to step back and look at that big picture, right?
I love it. One of my friends recently told me his goal this year was to be embarrassed by the person that he was the previous year. Ooh,
I like that. Good, right? Yeah.
I love it too. But that's the kind of feeling that I get from what you're saying, and especially within the sphere of competition that you're in. You're talking about how you can compare to yourself, but also magnify your strength while not emphasizing on your weaknesses. Because so many people will
focus on what they not
focus
good,
on the things that they can not do so well, and that becomes kind of the main thing that they're on, right? That they focus on, and it slows them down, so to say, on whatever race they might be in. Let's get into the bobsled.
Okay.
Unless you wanted to add something?
Well, I was just going to say that's interesting just because I feel like, everybody, you're always trying to focus and be like, be better, do this. And like, it's a delicate balance, but I always feel like it has to come from a place of like love and understanding and positivity for myself. And then you can kind of like move forward from that type of thing, as opposed to, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, and you're like down on yourself. You know what I mean?
It's also about it's about accepting it, right? Because it's not like you ignore it, right? You still work on your starts, but you're not making it your sole focus, correct?
Right.
Let's get to the bobsled.
Let's go to the bobsled.
How does a summer Olympian start to think about the winter period.
Right.
Like talk to us about how that transition was,
Yeah.
because I think it's bold. So many people get kind of stuck in the mundane and the
Yeah.
routines of what they usually do,
Right.
and they're kind of not willing to step out of their comfort zone, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So how did that come up?
So it was like super random. I had a Twitter message waiting for me after the 2016 Rio Olympics.
Okay.
And I just finished my second Olympics.
Mhm.
I made my second Olympic final.
Okay.
Track's going pretty good. You know, I ain't got no complaints. And then I have this Twitter message waiting for me from Kaylee Humphreys, who I ended up being sliding with. And she was like, have you ever considered doing bobsleigh? And in my mind, I'm like, no, like never even like crossed my mind. I enjoy the sun. I enjoy my tans. But even within that, in me saying no, I like couldn't get the idea out of my head, you know? And I think the thing that intrigued me the most was picking up a new sport and just like challenging myself in a way that I've never challenged myself before. Like I've been doing track and field for 14 years at that point. And now you asking me to...
And you were good at it.
And I'm good at it. Like we
Right.
ain't even got no reason to like, you know?
Get out of it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I was like, okay, well, like I'm going to challenge myself in a whole new way and potentially go to the Winter Olympics. And I was like, I mean, I've got to at least go give it a try. Like, I just got to go see, like, you know, how it would go. And so, yeah, like I said before, I'm a really big believer in stepping outside of your comfort zone, and just taking a risk, because I feel like you got to take risks to kind of really see what you're made of.
Absolutely.
And I think, like you were saying, like we all kind of live in this box of like comfort and routine, and it's like nice and we feel good. But like the real magic happens when you kind of step outside of that. So I saw that as an opportunity to like kind of learn about myself, challenge myself, to represent my country again. I was like, that would be a really cool opportunity. So I was like, yeah, let's do it.
So you just took it on. And,
yeah.
and
I packed up. So I was living in Baton Rouge at the time, and I packed up all my stuff. I put it in storage, and I moved to Calgary. Like that was it. I was like,
with
we
no
doing this.
experience whatsoever.
Zero. Yeah.
And
No guarantee that I'm gonna make the team. I'm leaving behind, like, no guarantee of how this is gonna affect track and field. It was like, okay, we just like, I literally felt
it was a leap of faith.
leap of faith. I was like, I literally felt like I was standing on a ledge, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna jump. Like I'll figure it out on the way.
So, okay, walk us through. Now you get there, first day of practice, and because again, you're used to
Yeah.
running.
Yeah.
You're used to the training is different.
Yeah.
The eating is different. I remember when we met up one time in
Yeah.
Calgary, and you were eating even differently.
Yeah.
So your whole body needed to change. Just
Mhm.
talk to us about the changes that needed to occur in your life period in order to succeed in this new sphere for you.
Yeah, so I have to say the transition was way harder than I expected it to be. So like you said, training is totally different. A big part of bobsleigh is about being as strong as possible. And track and field, it's about being, you know, fast and light. And so I had to like gain 20 pounds. I gained 20 pounds. So that's what we was eating. I was eating some cheesecake and some apple pie. So I had no problem doing that. But in order to just put the weight on, but I'm in the weight room and I was lifting like I've never lifted before.
Right.
So even with that, I feel like my power cleans, before I had lifted 80 kilos, by the end I was lifting like 95 kilos.
Right.
And I think I could have lifted 100 if they gave me a little more time, I would have got it. But, so I'm lifting, I had to get stronger. To push, you have to spend a lot of time on the ground, right? To be a really fast track athlete, it's about being as fast off the ground as possible. So I had to actually almost unlearn the things that I've learned in track and learn how to spend a lot of time on the ground.
Right.
So the first few months were really rough. Like people were looking at me like, there's no way she's gonna make this team. Like, cause I was just like doing all kinds of craziness behind the sled, and but I understood it was gonna be a process and just kind of like literally just taking it step by step. And then when the World Cup races started, and this is interesting, so being on in a team dynamic, which I wasn't used to, when the World Cup racing started, I wasn't racing. And I've never trained before and not been given the opportunity to compete. And I love compete. Like, that's why I do what I do. I love to compete.
Competition.
So that's when it was really starting to sting me, where I was like, ooh, like, I'm not even good enough to really be on the team. I'm not good enough to get in the sled right now. And I think that for me, that was the biggest motivation, where I was like, I need to earn my spot and show them that I'm good enough to compete. And, you know.
How many races did you have to?
I was for 4. 4, yeah. And then when you're sitting out as a spare, you basically like doing everything for your teammates. So you're bringing the sled up to the top, you're flipping it, you're like cleaning the runners. When they go to race and they go to the line, they like taking their clothes off, throwing it at you, you're collecting their clothes. And I was like, whew, like, I'm an Olympic finalist and I'm here as a spear for bobsleigh. Like, I chose to do this.
Humbling.
Yeah, really, really humbling, but motivating.
Yes.
But motivating. Or I was like, okay, this is not going to happen for much longer. And I'm going to earn my spot. And the very first race that they gave me, they were like, okay, cool, you're racing this week. I was like, well, you got to show out. Like, you have, like, once you give me this spot, I don't want nobody to take this spot back. So, yeah, I mean, when I got out there, it was literally just a matter of, like, just show everybody what you got type of thing. And I'm a competitor. And I think I thrive in big moments. I like to play under the lights, you know what I mean? So, you know, once I got that shot, I was like, okay, we got to make the most of it.
I love it. I watched your TED Talk, which everyone should actually take a look at. It was awesome and it was amazing. One of the things you mentioned there, and you kind of brought it up here, you talked about the change, and I think that I would say even 90, if not more, % of people fear that change, right? That might take them to that next level. Yeah. Talk to me about, or tell everyone about the fear that you kind of experienced when you actually made the decision. Now you're in Calgary, you're at the top of the hill, and you gotta go down, and no experience. You don't know what's gonna happen. Walk us through that first time you had to go in the bobsled.
Yeah, and I mean, it was interesting because I feel like they also didn't really prep me for it. It was kind of like, just get to the top of the hill, and they're like, all right, go ahead, go, do your thing, girl. And I mean, I think the biggest thing that people need to understand is that being fearless isn't necessarily the goal. Because I was standing at that line and my heart is beating out of my chest, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid in that moment. And so I think a lot of people, like, you know, they don't think they should feel afraid. Like, that's a normal response. You know? The thing is having the courage to take the step after that. So and courage is, you know, taking action in spite of the fear. So one thing I kind of loved about bobsleigh was, it's like, once you start, it's like you reach a point of no return. So it's like, as soon as you leave the block, it was like, this is happening. Oh, yeah. You know, this is happening.
And there's no going back.
There's no going back. Like, you know what I mean? And the one thing my driver, Kaylee, had said at that point was like, no matter what, you just make sure you get in the sled. Right? And even they didn't
or else.
Right. They didn't teach me how to load. So, and I actually almost fell the very first time. Because it's like this, and then it's like a steep downhill. So you're running downhill, and you got to, like, get into the sled at the same time. So
at a high speed.
I'm sprinting, but I'm like, whoa. So I almost fell, but like I did like a muscle up and swing, and I got in. But, you know, and I got to the bottom, and I was just proud of myself, you know, for kind of tackling that. And I was contemplating, like, do I want to do this again? But yeah, like, you find a way.
It's reminding me of that conversation we had earlier, and you were talking about, basically, we're talking about fear and how a lot of the times before you even do whatever you said you committed to, you have the greatest amount of fear, but a lot of times you feel great afterwards. Right. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an understanding of your mind plays a huge role in those things. You know, like, we play up a lot of, you know, we play a movie in our mind of what the situation is going to be like. Right. And I think it's important to understand that a lot of that is just a thought, and you can control your thoughts. And so that's why it's important. You just got to go out there and and put yourself in the situation to do it, because that a lot of that fear isn't even like true to like an actual situation. It's just something that you made up in your mind, you know? So, and a lot of times it's not even as bad as you thought it was going to be. So yeah, I mean, I'm always want to put myself in a situation where I'm afraid, but I'm overcoming it. And then the next time you go and you're like, you know what, it wasn't that bad.
Right.
I'll be all right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then you feel that sense of fulfillment, accomplishment, and satisfaction as well.
Yeah.
So, I'm a big believer that in life, every stage, every level, there's lessons that you must learn.
Right.
Right. What are the things that maybe you learned in track that you're able to apply in bobsled?
Right.
And also, if you have some things in bobsled that you do apply in track or your real life period, outside of sports.
Right. I think going from track into bobsleigh, the biggest thing that I took was that commitment and dedication, right? So knowing how to just be dedicated to something and to like be disciplined within that. Because I mean, I've been performing at a high level in track and field for years, and so I know what it is to be a high performance athlete, and I know what it is to compete. And I think for me, competition is so much about letting go and like being free within that and not trying. I think a lot of the times we think we have to like, you know, we get tense and you gotta try, you know what I mean? And I think there's something very important about preparation, like we said, preparation, having confidence, and then trusting yourself. I think if you're constantly questioning, you're never gonna get to see the results you want. So I think it's very important after you've put the work in to trust yourself and now go do. There's no extra thinking, you just go do.
Execute.
Right. And I would say going from bobsleigh back to track, bobsleigh taught me the importance of having a beginner's mind and to approaching things like it's new and fresh, and you know, asking questions, and basically just always seeing something like, okay, like how can I learn? What can I learn today? Because I think in track and field, having been doing it for so long, got mundane, and it's like, yeah, I know how to do this. I do this, and it's like doing bobsleigh taught me the importance of like keeping everything fresh so even now coming back, I almost try and let go of a lot of my expectations and a lot of my like, this is how track and field goes, and I want to see every day as new, almost like a little kid, and seeing how I can better myself, because now I can be more curious and question, like, is this the best way to do it? Maybe there is a better way to do it. So yeah, I'm a huge proponent now of seeing things from a beginner's point of view.
Awesome, because it allows you to grow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And not to be complacent. I think when you've been doing something for a long time, it's easy to kind of just be like, I'm just gonna settle in this, and you know, you've been doing it for a long time, or even, you know, people always say, this is the way we do, this is just the way we do things. But like I said, is that the best way to do things? Or maybe it was the best, you know, 2 years ago, but is it for the best that you are right now? So all constantly questioning yourself in terms of like making sure you're performing at the highest level for you as the person that you are right now.
A good friend of mine says complacency is the enemy of progress.
100%.
Right. So having the career that you've had so far and experiencing in different areas such as bobsleigh, looking back, is there a moment that sticks out to you the most, changing moment, or just a moment that you feel this moment sort of defined me?
That's a hard question.
I know.
There's a lot of moments.
Give me two.
I know.
If you can't pick.
I'll say this. So, leaving university, I did not look like I was supposed to be a professional athlete. So I've been a late bloomer my whole career, right? And so in high school, I wasn't highly recruited. I was good, but not highly recruited. But I went away on a full scholarship. I go to university, And she's like, every year I'm slowly chipping away, but graduating, so in the 100-meter hurdles, an elite athlete, female, runs on sub 13 seconds. I was running 13:39. And everybody was kind of like, track's been good, but maybe you just keep it moving, right? And I had aspirations of going to med school, so everybody's kind of telling me,
drop it.
You had a good run, girl, just keep it moving. And to me, it was one, I had this dream of going to the Olympics since I was 9. And I just was like, you know what? This is not the best that I have. I genuinely feel like I have more in me. So 2011 was my first year being able to dedicate myself to track and field. And it was a breakout year for me. Mm-hmm. Every single time I stepped on the track, I ran a personal best. And everyone told me I probably would never make a Canadian team in the 100-meter hurdles. So making that team, I made the team that year for World Championships. And then I went to World Championships and I made the final. And from a year before, everyone telling me you should quit track and field to being top 7 in the world. So make the moment that I made that final, it was I belong here. I am one of the best in the world. And I know, I had to kind of overcome, and I'm talking family, coaches. I had to overcome people who I know loved me, telling me that, you're not capable. But like I said, in track and field, you have to have that utmost belief in self. And kind of I was like, no, I understand where you guys are coming from, but
this is what I believe.
This is what I believe, and I know that I can do this. So actually having that all come together, after kind of stepping out, was a huge moment for me. And I think that definitely kind of set my career, on fire, because the next year, I made the Olympics. But I was so confident that next year because I really had to battle that year before. And just being well, no, I made the right decision. So, and I'm going to be an Olympian. So.
Man, it's so important. Again, mental toughness keeps coming up in our conversation. We're at the Muamba moments, and we're talking about the moments that you've experienced in the past. Now, tell me because you're a bold woman, confident, right? You're not afraid to change the color of your hair,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But was there ever a moment where you doubted yourself?
Right.
And you questioned,
yeah,
will I be able to do this? And again, you kind of mentioned that you had to kind of overcome other people talking to you or negatively towards you or towards your future, your goals, your dreams. But what about yourself? Have you ever doubted from the depth of your soul, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah. I think it's a huge part. I've definitely doubted myself throughout the process. So I think I'll give you 2 examples.
Okay.
So 2012, made the Olympics. I'm on fire. The world's great. 2013, the very next year, I injured my hamstring, pulled my hamstring in 2 places.
Right. In a race?
No, in practice.
Practice.
I didn't get to race at all that whole year.
Okay.
I had to end up doing rehab 8 months, so I didn't get to race that whole year. So then stepping out in 2014, it was my mojo was gone. And I'm running, and it was every time I stepped at the line, I was I wasn't sure if I could run fast again. I was worried about getting injured. And so for me, that year was the biggest battle of fighting my own doubt within myself. And I think a big part of it also was taking on other people's, I started creating in my mind how other people were viewing me.
Right.
And I was I'm an Olympic finalist, look at the times that I'm running, and I'm taking on, and I'm creating, nobody said this to me.
Right.
In my mind, I'm saying,
that voice in your head.
Yeah, right.
Right, it's that voice in your head.
Exactly. And then through bobsleigh, when I first got out there, and I'm the spear, and then I was what? What are you doing out here? You only have 6 months to make this team. You're a spear. I was this makes no sense. You're probably not going to make the team, in my mind. And same thing, I was looking at the other girls who had been pushing for years, and I'm looking at the times that they were pushing, and I was look what they're pushing. You're not pushing that. So that comparison again was also helping, it was fueling the doubt within me. So that's why I say, like, in the moments when I tend to see myself doubting myself, I also make sure that I'm not comparing myself to other people. Because I find, and so doing bobsleigh, I just stopped looking at the times that I was pushing, and I stopped looking at the times the other girls were pushing, and I had nothing to compare myself to anymore. And just kind of keeping that, like, I put these blinders on, and like, you know what? You can't even look outside of any of that right now, because that's creating doubt within you, and just allowing myself to stay super focused on what I was doing.
Man, that's really, really, really good. And you're talking about focus. You're talking about, you know, the things that people were saying, the things that you were telling yourself along the journey. I just love what you stand for, as a woman, especially the strength that you kind of demonstrate, you know, on a daily basis. What is it about you, and something that you can tell somebody that's out there watching this right now, a young girl, even a young man, right? What is it about you that kind of differentiates yourself, that sets you apart from the others?
I mean, I would have to say, not to toot my own horn, but I think I have.
Go ahead.
I think I have really great work ethic, and like I said, I wasn't always this like amazing superstar high school athlete, and I had to just kind of grind and work. But I always believed in myself. But you know, belief in self and talent is not the only thing that's going to get you there. So work ethic is definitely, you know, something that I feel like has really taken me really, really far, because I could have just been the girl that's like, you know, I could have done that, or, you know, I should have done that. But it was really just a matter of me sitting down, planning out, and saying, I'm capable and I want to do this. How am I going to get there? And planning that out, and then executing it. So yeah, I think I work really hard. I believe in myself, and I'm willing to feel uncomfortable. And I'm willing to put myself in those situations. I'm willing to fail. I think that's a big thing too. Like I'm willing to fail, because I understand that, you know, if I don't kind of get to the edge and jump, like, the opportunities will never come to me, and I can't win if I don't put myself out there to potentially fail. So you have to be willing to fail, and I've had numerous failures over the years, but I've also had really great successes.
I love it. And although, you know, you're perceived as this strong woman, you talk about the shortcomings that you've had, the struggles that you've experienced, and to me it just makes it so much more real to everybody, right? Because at the end of the day, it makes it believable, right? To be able to achieve that next level. So before we wrap up, what is a message as a female woman who is thriving and continuing to grow? The sky is the limit for you.
Yeah.
What is a message you would leave to the young girls that might be watching right now?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I would say is to just continually to stand in your truth. Something that I had to learn to do. We like social media, TV, you're constantly seeing all these other, you know, messages and images, right? Telling you this is how you should be, and this is how, you know, this is the way to be. And I think it's very important to be in touch with yourself, to take time to truly know yourself, and to stand in that, despite what, you know, what everybody else or other people are saying to you. And I honestly believe that's where you'll see the most fulfillment. Trying to be somebody else and trying to, you know, emulate other people is not, your heart won't feel fulfilled. And so I think the biggest thing is figuring out who you are and standing in that, and being confident within that.
Embracing the uniqueness of
100%.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Phylicia, for the time, and just sharing your story, your journeys, your ups, your lows, and how you overcame those situations as well. We're just excited to have had you here at the Muamba moment, and it's a wrap.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.